It's the end of the month, which means the report card is due in. How have Nottingham Forest fared in the month of Feb? Let's get into it. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are. Whatever time of day you're watching this, hope you're having a fantastic day. And welcome to your latest Forest news. In today's video, we're going to be going through the February report card. We'll be looking back at all the results, who's played well, who could do better, and who got the A star from Marinakis in this month. Before we get into it, as always, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and if you'd like to be a member and get all the member perks, it's only 99p, so hit that $ or join down below. All right, let's get into it, and let's start with how Forest have performed on the pitch. So Forest kicked off the month of February with a loss on the first day in the second leg of the Mickey Mouse Cup to eventual winners Manchester United with a 2-0 defeat away from home. I don't really care about that one, so we're not going to stick around and talk about it. I'm more interested in the Premier League ones. And the Premier League kicked off with a bang as Forest hosted Leeds at home and secured a 1-0 win with a beautiful goal. For me, goal of the month for February. I mean, we didn't really... Actually, it's not goal of the month for February. We have two choices for goal of the month. That's going to be the question today. Is Brennan Johnson's goal against Leeds goal of the month? Or was the goal, the team goal against Man City, goal of the month? Those are the two you have to pick from the whole of the month. So get your answers in down below. Just type in Man City or Leeds. Anyway, so we kicked off with that. It was a lovely goal, whatever way you look at it. He flushed it beautifully from the edge of the box, and Forest went 1-0 up. And because of that, we ended up sacking Jesse Marsh from Leeds. Forest then ended up in 13th in the league there, and our next match was away to Fulham, and what an awful performance it was, as the granddad Will.i.am absolutely taught Forest a lesson and pretty much single-handedly dragged Fulham across the line in that one. Forest lost 2-0 in that game, but we did see the debut of Jonjo Shelvey in that match, and he looked fantastic when he came on, providing a few good crosses, a few good looking balls, and was settling himself in quite nicely. By this stage, most Nottingham Forest fans were absolutely sick to the back teeth of Chris Wood because he had done absolutely nothing on the pitch and was starting to cause a lot of frustration, including myself in the fan base. So, come away from that Fulham match and we move on to what is on paper the hardest match of the month, and that was going to be Man City, the current champions of England, at home at the City Ground. It was one hell of a match. It was backs against the wall as Erling Haaland put in a fantastic defensive performance for Nottingham Forest, making sure he cleared the ball over the crossbar a good couple of times from very close up. And they went 1-0 up with another edge of the box worldie from Silva. But Forest didn't falter and Forest didn't cower, and by the last 10 minutes of the match, Forest started to get themselves back into the game, and arguably goal of the season so far, with a 19 passing sequence that saw every player on the pitch touching the ball, and the fans' frustrated player Chris Wood putting in that worldie in from 2 yards out to secure a point for Nottingham Forest in the 84th minute at the City Ground. And what a night that was. What a night. Probably for me the highlight of the month so far. But then fast forward on to this weekend just gone, and Forest travelled down to West Ham. And this was a game where Forest could have gone 8 points clear of the relegation zone, put the final nail in David Moyes' coffin. I mean, he already looks like the Walking Dead as it is, so you wouldn't have expected it to be a hard job. And for 70 minutes, they held out. And then that fatal substitution of Shelvey off and IU on. And suddenly Forest turned from Nottingham Forest FC into Tesco FC, where it became buy one, get three free. I mean, Tesco's doesn't even give you that good an offer. And Forest capitulated into a 4-0 loss. So, overall for Nottingham Forest, for the month of February, we've had 1 win, 1 draw, 2 to 3 losses, depending if you want to count the Carabao Cup in or not. So, a 4-point tally from a potential 12 Premier League points. How do you guys feel about that points tally? If we were to carry on picking up 4 points a month, you've got the month of March, month of April, and the month of May. That would be 12 points. Coming from 25, that would put us up to about, 37 if my maths doesn't fail me. That's nip-tuck. That's nip-tuck. Probably enough to keep us safe. And when you break it down to that, if you really think about it, if Forest can get 4.5 points a month, that would take us over the 40-point mark and guaranteed safety. Does that make it sound better or harder or easier for you guys in your minds? Let me know down below. But let's move on and talk about player performances and who has stuck out and who has not in the team so far. Just before we talk about the players, let's talk about the goals for and against. Forest have conceded 2 against Man U, clean sheet against Leeds. Forest then lost 2-0 to Fulham, conceded 1 against Man City and 4 against West Ham. So in total, we scored 2 goals and conceded 9 or 7, depending on whether or not you want to count the Carabao Cup. So in the Premier League, our goal tally is 2-4-7 against, a -5 goal difference. Had it not been for that West Ham capitulation, if we had, say, drawn it 0-0, I mean, it's all ifs, buts and maybes in hindsight, Forest could have ended up with a +1 positive goal tally, but that's not to be the case. Wait, is that right? -1 goal tally. But that's not to be the case. Look, the goals against are still a huge problem, and the goals for are just as problematic as well. This does need to be addressed, and this does need to change. And as I showed you in the full match analysis after the West Ham game, the negative tactics are going to cost us and could be the undoing of us this season. We have to at some point grow a pair and really push out an attack. So for the goals scored, you have to give it a D. You really do. And for the goals conceded, even though, most of them came against the West Ham game, you'd give that a D as well. But the points tally does push you back up, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. But let's move on to the players. So we're not going to do our usual top 10. I'm going to praise some players and, cuss down some players as well over the month of February. And I want your opinion on who you think have been our best players and our worst players so far this month. For me, it's a tough one because there's been some new changes. We've seen the likes of Navas coming in, Shelvey coming in, Felipe Ayew and Chris Wood, etc. And obviously Danilo and Scarpini coming in at the start of the window. For me, the 2 players that have stood out beyond everyone else, including players who were already there so far this season, are Navas and Felipe. I think they've come in and brought in solidity and experience and leadership. 3 things that Forest have been severely lacking so far this season, especially with the injured leadership players out currently. So I've been really pleased with those 2 players. In fact, so pleased that I don't know which way to order them in terms of 1 and 2 for the month of February. I'm going to give it to Felipe over Navas, mainly because I don't know if this will make sense, but I think Navas has been brilliant, but he's replaced brilliance in terms of Hendo, in my opinion. So I think had Hendo been fit even, that it would have been, just as good a performance as Navas. But with Felipe, he has come in and he has replaced crap in terms of, McKenna, in terms of Worrell, in terms of those. I think Bolly's been fantastic, but Felipe has brought in a level of Champions League pedigree, of Simeone-style defending, of aggression and leadership that we haven't seen a lot of this season at the back, outside of Willy Bolly, to be honest. Now, when Niakate comes back, we hopefully will see that as a pairing. That's the dream pairing for me. I still wake up at night happy and smiley and realize it was just a dream. But maybe some point this season or this millennium, we will see Niakate back on the pitch for Nottingham Forest. But this is about Felipe. And for me, Felipe has been an outstanding signing. I'm putting him at number 1 with Navas at number 2. Those are my top 2 for the month so far. Do you guys agree with that or disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. In terms of players that have not impressed, let's say it nicely rather than say they're crap. This month so far, for me, the worst out of the bunch has to be Ayew. I don't know what he's doing. I feel like he's Favourites FC. This is Friends Central Perk style. Him and Cooper having a coffee. I haven't seen what he's been offering on the pitch. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've missed it. Maybe he hasn't had enough game time and I'm being a bit too harsh. But this one for me, he comes on. I thought he was a striker or a left winger. He ends up playing most of his football in the middle of the midfield. And I haven't seen him offer much. Yes, he was part of the build-up for the Man City goal and an integral part of that. But outside of that, he hasn't offered me too much that has excited me. Alongside him, I am going to pick Chris Wood. I didn't think he's had a good game apart from that 10-minute cameo against Manchester City. Aside of that, he was poor against West Ham. He was atrocious against Fulham. And he didn't offer much else in his other games before that. So I think he's been my biggest disappointment alongside IU. And then obviously for me, it's been Joe Worrell and Nico Williams. I feel both of these are lacking the credentials that is required for Premier League football. And I don't think they can quite cut it. I would love them both to prove me wrong, make me eat my own words. I would have no greater pleasure than seeing the likes of Joe Worrell turn into a Maldini in terms of a defender. It would make my heart sink. It really would. But seeing what I'm seeing now, the amount of ball watching he's doing, I'm not seeing it happening. And the quicker Niakate is back, the better for the team. In terms of Nico Williams as well, I almost feel sorry for him. He's had this £17 million label tagged on him. It is way more than he is worth by at least double. But that's not his fault. But what is his fault is how he lacks physicality at right back, how he gets pushed over the ball so easily, how he can't shoot and how he can't cross as well. For me, I still think he will develop into a good player. I thought maybe next year would be his year, but it may be longer than that. Again, I'd love him to make me eat my words because if they're playing well, it benefits the team and that's all I care about. But those are the four that I think have struggled in the month of February. In terms of honourable mentions, you've got to honourably mention Jono with his goal, which is absolutely fantastic against Leeds. He's developed very well since the World Cup. I would love to put in there Morgan Gibbs-White, but I feel like he's carrying still a bit of a knock and may have been rushed back. But overall, Morgan Gibbs-White has been very solid and one of our most consistent players across the whole of the season. It's now time for us to kick on and move forward as March brings its own challenges. Okay, so the report card for the manager has to be somewhere in and around a C to C minus for me. He had, well, you'd give him an A star, wouldn't you, for the Man City game? But the games against Fulham and the games against West Ham does bring that down quite heavily, and you'd give him a nice solid B for the Leeds game. So if you average that out, I have no idea what it is. Let's just say a C for the sake of argument. I think a C overall for Cooper is a fair reflection on how he's performed. 2 good performances, 2 really bad ones. So overall, a C, a pass grade is what I'd say for him. But he does need to step up and get his tactical mind into more of a positive sense. He needs to make sure he's making the substitutions at the right times. Look, it's really easy to sit here and criticize a substitution against West Ham. But for one that didn't make sense to, I don't think anyone, you can see why people have criticized him for it. Bringing on IU instead of maybe going for a like with Danilo, or someone like a Scarpinia who could offer a lot more on the pitch. But you have to sing his praises for the way we performed against Man City and how we were able to grind out that result against Leeds. Yes, we rode our luck, but at the end of the day, the table doesn't say lucky 3 points. It just says 3 points. So I'm going to give Steve Cooper for the month of Feb a C. A C for me, for Steve Cooper. These are 3 huge games in March as Forest will host Everton, then go away to Spurs and play Newcastle under the lights of the City ground towards the end of the month before we go into the international break. How many points do you guys see us getting from these next 9? For me, this Everton match has been doubled in the pressure cooker that it is after the horrific performance we had against West Ham. We will get into a full build-up into the Everton match throughout this week. But this one is become must win. When you look ahead to our next couple of fixtures, it's not really until Wolves that you could see Forest being made favourites by the bookies on a match in a heads up. So we'll have to see how it goes. But how do you guys feel Forest will perform in March? It's a shorter match because of the international break. There's only 3 games, so 9 points to play for. How do you guys feel about it? Do you agree with what I've said today? Do you disagree? Do you agree with some of it and not the other? Let me know as always in the comments down below. Hope you've enjoyed the February report card. Overall, I would give Forest, I'd say a C+ for Feb. It hasn't been as good as January. It could have been a lot worse. 4 points keeps us on track to get to 37, 38 points. It's a C+ for me, but I'd like to see us put the foot down and accelerate way past that 40-point mark. I think Marinakis, as things stand, is probably content with how things are going. Remember, he's invested a lot of money into this club and he expects big results. His ambitions are a lot higher than 40 points, but he is realistic as well. So C+ for me overall for Nottingham Forest in the month of February. I'm hoping we get an A+ come March. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next video. If you haven't already, hit that like button before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And come on, you Reds.